For about a year, when I was 12, I had this reoccurring problem where I couldn't understand what words meant. What I mean is I would get stuck in this paradox of thought where I would think of all the words that I'm saying. And I would think, how do I know what those words mean? And I would think that I know what they mean because of their definitions. Like, for example, take the word only. What does only mean? I would guess I would define only as meaning the word only means as itself, I guess, right? Something like that. I'm just yeah, so but then as itself, what does each word in the sentence as itself mean? Then you have to go itself means basically as it. Yeah, I also I would be defining weird grammatical words like as that aren't really like other words, and I don't have this problem anymore because, well, I'll explain that later, but basically, yeah, I would just, every single word, every sentence, I would be trying to figure out the definitions of each word in that sentence, thinking of the definitions in my head, and then sometimes I'd even have to think of the definitions of those definitions just to go farther and farther down to know what the words that I'm hearing and saying mean. And this didn't happen for the entire year when I was 12 because I wasn't always thinking of it, but I would always try not to think of it. I would always have to try and forget it the moment the thought of, I guess, the word paradox. I don't know if I guess that's what I can call it now. I don't even think I had a word for it, but anytime thoughts of the word paradox came into my head, I would try and forget it because I don't want to have to go through having to define every word, not being able to understand words. And when I was talking to people, I could understand words. I guess talking to people is mentally stimulating enough, or maybe that's not the right word. It might be natural enough that the words just, I have to sneeze, but you know what the words mean. But if I was reading, if I was reading, or if I was watching a show, or if I had to read articles for school, it would really be a pain to know what the words meant. I'd just have to try and forget it while I'm working. And it would typically come, I think it would come in spats of 2-week spats. I'd have a 2-week period where I constantly think of the word paradox. Not every second of the day, but many, many seconds of the day. It would just come and bother me. But then I might get out of that 2-week spat when I can just push it farther and farther out of my mind. That's what I would do. I would just try and push it out of my mind. It would always come back a lot, just not being able to understand words. Massive pain. I remember I was watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I was 12. And I was just struggling to understand what this one character was saying. I was trying to figure out the definition for the word chakras in my head. And then I was spirit energy. And then I was what's the definition? I don't know. I remember that, just definitions, such a pain. But eventually I got over it. What I did eventually is, I remember I was reading. I was reading some manga, I think, but I eventually just told myself to stop trying to define the words and accept that I'm not defining them and just see what happens. And I said, eventually my mind will just naturally adapt if I stop defining the words. That's what I told myself. And I guess my mind did adapt, but the thing is, maybe I knew the definitions the whole time. I probably knew the definitions of all the words I was hearing the whole time, and I was just psyching myself out with a false need to, I guess, verbalize in my head the definitions. When you don't need to, I have to sneeze. You don't need to think of the definitions at all. I'm sick, but yeah. And the way now though, if I think about it, I'm just what was the point of any of that? Because that's not how the mind doesn't work by you needing to define words with more words. You automatically understand things because the language part of your brain developed. You don't need to define words. You just know what they mean. Oh my gosh, my nose is gross right now. Oh my gosh. our brains automatically define words, even words that aren't simple, like defining the word dog is easy because I can just think of an image of a dog, but defining the word the is much more difficult. Same with defining as or so, or to, but it doesn't really matter because your brain automatically knows, and just knows, because that's how language brain works.